Welcome, everybody, to the Fastback Podcast, where we discuss the beauty that is the Fast and Furious franchise, among other related action films. My name is Justin. I'm joined, as always, by my best friend, Leif. Leif, old man, how are you doing on this fine evening?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. You?
Pretty good, pretty good. Good to hear from you. How's everything on the home front?
Oh, slow and steady, like usual.
Slow and steady, slow and steady. So we're going to jump right into things this week. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Not too much news this week. A couple quick news topics before we get on to our game of the night. First news topic. Both of these come out of the MTV Music Movie Awards, or whatever that nonsense is, that was on last night. One of them, real quick, they gave the cast of the Fast and Furious what I guess maybe is their equivalent of a Lifetime Achievement Award. I think they called it the Generation Award or something like that. I guess this goes to something that has some kind of generational impact on a large group of people over a large amount of time.
They are the zeitgeist.
Yeah, I mean this, and when you look at that and kind of what MTV's target audience may or may not be, and you look at the fact that these movies, like we've discussed, have been coming out for 16 years and are as popular as ever, with the movie coming out this summer, seems like a good time to give them that award. And then you know how this whole award industry thing works. You give them awards, they show up, you get publicity for them showing up, they tweet out, hey, we're going to be at the MTV Music Awards, more people watch the MTV Awards, and it's all kind of like this kind of game. I mean, is that the wrong term? You know what I mean. It's business.
Self-feeding machine.
Yeah, it's a self-feeding machine. Interesting side note, dude. Did you know that, like, when you get a Hollywood Walk of Fame star, like, the star themselves pays for that? It's like a total promotion thing, too. Like, not just anybody can go do it. Like, you and me couldn't just go pay whatever. It's a ridiculous amount, trust me. But if we could scrap up the money, it's not like you can get a star. I think you have to be maybe you're a candidate, like maybe you get recognized that you have the potential to then get a star, and then it's up to you whether or not you want to pay for it. But anyway, was kind of disappointing, one of those disappointing things to hear, but it's all show business. It's all business. Second little bit of news, Gal Gadot, all right, now she played Giselle in the 4th, 5th, and 6th Fast and Furious movie. Now, you've not met her character yet.
Nope.
But she's a fan favorite character, okay?
Okay.
And she is going to be, and has already, in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which I can't imagine you saw. She is playing Wonder Woman in this DC Extended Universe, or DC Cinematic Universe, or whatever they call it. So she's playing Wonder Woman, all right? And they dropped the final trailer, Rise of the Warrior trailer. And this is your movie marketing now, man. I think we might have mentioned this before, but it's like 10 trailers and 20 TV spots. No more just one or two trailers. It just goes,
yeah.
It starts...
It's a little intense.
It's intense, and it starts a year before the movie comes out. It goes, I mean, some of these movies, and I follow it, you know, closer than you do at this point, but some of these movies, like, you're reading about them 3 years before they come out. They announce a release date, and then you find out who the writer is, and then you follow the casting, and then it's behind the scenes photos, and then it's a trailer a year out, and then it's a teaser to a trailer, and then it's 5 other trailers, and then it's 20 TV spots, and before you see the movie, and this is a common complaint with a lot of people who do really follow this, you've seen half the movie before you even walk into the theater. But long rambling point being that they dropped this Wonder Woman trailer. Now, I know you're not a super... I'm excited about this movie because I follow the superhero movies. I'm curious to see what they do with this for a number of reasons having to do with kind of the critical and commercial response to these DC movies that have come out previously that I'm not going to bore you with, at least not now. I'll bore you with that at another day. But, so from a creative standpoint and a financial standpoint, from a lot of standpoints, I'm very curious to see how this Wonder Woman movie does. But I'm also just very curious just to see it just as what it's supposed to be, entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like Gal Gadot. I did like her as Giselle. So that gives another layer of interest to this for me and kind of ties it in loosely to what we talk about here at the Fastback Podcast. But I guess if we can talk about a Jason Statham transporter movie, I guess we can talk about Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. So you watched this trailer. I asked you to watch it.
I like to think that they're all actually related to the Fast and Furious universe. Myself.
They could be. I mean, I'll tell you what, if they were by the same studio, that would not be out of the realm of possibility. And even if they're not by the same studio, it's not out of the realm of possibility. You do have Sony and Disney collaborating on that Spider-Man movie that's coming out this year, so Spider-Man can be in the Marvel movies because technically, Marvel doesn't own the rights to Spider-Man. But we should have a whole podcast episode where I just bore you with the intricate details of what's going on in the landscape of superhero movies for the past 15 years.
It sounds delightful.
Yeah. So what did you think? I mean, I look at this with, as I just said over the past 2 or 3 minutes, there's a lot of history crammed in my brain that I'm watching this from my perspective. You just turn this thing on. I don't know if you've seen a Superman movie or a superhero movie since we saw Batman Returns back in 1992. I'm sure you have. But you just pop this thing on YouTube. You watch the trailer. What were your thoughts about this thing?
Well, I haven't seen a superhero movie in quite some time, but I've seen a ton of trailers for superhero movies.
Okay.
And by now, man, they're all just blending together for me.
Well, they blend together for me, and I watch every one of them in the theater. I mean, it's a hero's journey, and it's an origin story for the most part. Yeah. And those are tales as old as time, and there's only so much you can do with them, which is why you're seeing Marvel do some interesting things where they're taking some B and C league characters. And the interesting thing that, to me anyway, that Marvel is doing is that they will have found a way to do different genres of superhero movies, within the superhero genres.
Yeah.
Like the Captain America movies are like political spy thrillers. Ant-Man and stuff like that are comedies. Doctor Strange was like a weird kind of horror movie. Thor has kind of like this Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings thing going on. So it's really kind of brilliant how they're giving you superhero movies, but in a lot of different flavors. But we're not talking. We're talking about the old Wonder Woman. How are you seeing these superhero trailers since you don't really seek them out? Is this just stuff that's playing in front of YouTube when you're watching something else?
Yeah, they show up on YouTube. They show up, on TV and different, like Hulu and whatnot.
Yeah.
But and sometimes I'll just watch them because I'm curious. So, not curious enough to see the movie, just curious enough to see the 2 minutes that matter, apparently. But yeah, with Wonder Woman, I don't know, it was a good trailer. It was interesting. But nothing stood out for me. I do think it's refreshing to see kind of powerful woman that's not oversexed.
Yeah.
As a superhero.
Well, so you would agree that, and I'm not trying to lead you in this in any way, but you would agree that the actress of Gal Gadot, who, like I said, you haven't seen in these Fast and the Furious movies, that she looked good. And I mean by good, a good performance. You thought that she had a good screen presence, kind of an iconic look about her. You kind of thought overall the aesthetic of the movie looked good.
Yeah. She was commanding, but not falling into a bunch of cliche stuff.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you think about her when she comes up in the Fast movies. Chris Pine looked great in this. I would hate to immediately follow up your point about having a strong, commanding female presence as the lead of this movie, and then my counterpoint is, hey, Chris Pine looked pretty good. But Chris Pine looked pretty good. I mean, the guy is charismatic. He had a couple funny lines in there. Chris Pine is, I like Chris Pine. I like him because he's Kirk. But I just think, you've seen a couple of those Star Trek movies. I like Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I wish we'd stop fighting the Germans. I mean, that seems to be overplayed.
Yeah.
But
It's kind of interesting, though, that this one, at least they set it in World War I.
Yeah.
Instead of World War II, where this stuff is usually set. Captain America, the first Avenger, was the first Captain America movie in this modern franchise, and that was set in World War II, so I think they figured that, well, we better go back a little bit and at least do World War I if it's going to be a very similar kind of war story set in the past. It looked interesting. The effects looked good. I'm excited to see it. I think that this is going to be, I honestly think that this one is going to end up being a big deal. And maybe these DC movies will turn the corner. They've taken kind of a beating with their first 3 movies, and I'm thinking that hopefully this is the one that breaks through and kind of sets them on the right course. You got to be surprised by these trailers in general. Like when you looked blown away when we were watching the Fast 8 trailer a month ago now, and when we went to see Fast 8, I would just look over at you every now and then, and it looks like you were on the dive down from a roller coaster at the highest point when some of these trailers have come on. Because you haven't followed this stuff in a long time. Are you just amazed by just the sensory overload that these 2-minute trailers are now, with the music and the action scene? And they're like, trailers in general, you've watched probably more trailers in general now in the past month than you probably watched in the past 5 years. Are you blown away by these trailers?
Oh yeah, they're intense, and I was gonna bring this up later on with the Triple X trailer, the original Triple X. Comparing that to the accidentally watched new Triple X trailer is like night and day difference.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like it's no longer like come see the movie. It's like you've already seen the movie because we've thrown everything good at you at this instant.
Yeah, they're selling it. And some of these trailers, man, and I love watching trailers, and I watch a lot of them, even if it's movies that I know I'm not going to see in the theater or a movie that I might not even be interested in. Because, man, some of these trailers are just works of art. The way they incorporate music and the way they, they don't really do the voiceover anymore, but the scenes that they decide to use and the way they edit them together, even though sometimes it's misleading with how they play out in the actual movie themselves. I mean, you can have trailers that, like, I'm sure you didn't see it, but over this past summer, Logan came out, okay? Now, Hugh Jackman has been Wolverine since the year 2000 with the first X-Men. And over something ridiculous, like, 7, 8, 9 movies, and he's finally hanging up the claws, so to speak, and he made this last movie called Logan, which I think we'll watch it at one point. I think you would enjoy the heck out of it. It's a very dark, almost Western-type movie where there's monologues where they're quoting lines from Shane and things of that nature. This is not a joke.
Come back.
That scene, he's watching that scene on TV in the movie because it's parallel to what's going on to Wolverine as he protects this little girl in this movie. And the first trailer for that, man, I would recommend if you get a chance to watch it, because it's just bleak images of a grizzled Hugh Jackman and a just, not joking, this is part of the movie, Professor X is gone senile. He's so old that he's starting to lose his mental capacity. And when that happens to anybody, it's a terrible thing. But when it happens in this universe to the most powerful mutant in the world, it starts to become a dangerous thing. So Wolverine has to protect him from himself and protect everybody else from him. Anyway, dude, they're showing all these bleak images, and it's got Johnny Cash's Hurt playing over it. And, dude, it's an incredible trailer. So we're getting a little off course here, but so Wonder Woman, I don't know if this is something we'll watch for the podcast. It has a loose connection to Fast and the Furious. Maybe not even a loose connection. I mean, it's got one of the big stars of the Fast and the Furious is the star of this. I know you also have mentioned that you're kind of interested in seeing how, women and female characters are treated in modern blockbusters. You've mentioned that on a couple of our shows. So this one comes out June 2nd. I guess when it comes a little closer, we can sit down and decide, is this something that we watch for the Fastback podcast, a little behind the scenes for you all. We'll see if this fits in, and we'll take it from there. But maybe we'll be talking a little bit more about this in a few weeks. And even if you decide that maybe it's not for you, I'm sure I'll see it, and maybe I'll just drop a few lines about it on a future episode. But that's pretty much it for the news. So on to the meat and potatoes of what today's podcast is going to be about. We decided that we're going to try to have a little fun on this episode. And I've come up with a little game, and we mentioned it last week, where I have come up with 10 summaries for Vin Diesel movies. Okay? Now, you know nothing about Vin Diesel's filmography other than now The Fast and the Furious and Triple X.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to read the summary to you, and you're going to try to guess which ones are real Vin Diesel movies, okay, that actually came out, and which ones are something that I completely made up.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to call this real or no real. So I'm going to ask you, and at the end of it, you're going to say real or no real. And this is the Vin Diesel edition. Because maybe if this works and we enjoy it, maybe we'll try to do this for a couple others. So I'm going to give you the title. Now, if you recognize the title, because you may recognize a couple of these titles, or you may not, don't say immediately whether or not you know if it's a real thing until I read the summary. Because a couple of these, I threw a couple softballs in here, all right, just to get us started.
So
okay?
I feel like a winner?
So you can feel like you get a couple of them. And we'll see how you do. All right, so real or no real? Movie number 1, Pitch Black, 2000, Gramercy Pictures. Okay? Vin plays a former mercenary, soldier, and pilot, an infamous criminal and murderer who is captured and placed in suspended animation along with a bounty hunter who is to bring him to prison to collect his reward. The ship crashes on a desert planet. Although still a wanted man, he teams up with the survivors of the crash to help protect them against predatory aliens. He has surgically altered eyes that allow him to see in the dark, but needs protection from daylight. That's the summary. Now, do you think that that is a movie that actually exists, or did I make that one up? Real or no real?
That is real.
That is real.
I've actually seen that one.
So you've seen Pitch Black. I've never seen Pitch Black.
I saw it a long time ago.
Okay, because I made a note here that says with 3 live-action movies, an animated movie, and another live-action movie on the way called Furia, I think that somewhere down the line, these Chronicle of Riddick movies are perfect fodder for the Fastback podcast.
Oh, yeah.
He's very dedicated to these things. And my friend at work, a friend of mine at work was telling me that the Chronicles of Riddick video game, he's a big video game guy. I am not a video game guy at all. But he was saying that a lot of times these movie video games are so garbage because they have to get them out in a real quick amount of time to coincide with the release of the movie. But because the studios are so afraid of spoilers, that they'll just give these video game companies a very rough draft of what's going to happen in the movie, and they kind of just have to go from there. And so they'll say, okay, the Penguin's going to be the villain, and it comes out in summer of 97. We need to have the video game in stores March of 1997. And then they just take these video game companies, go off and try to haphazardly throw a thing together. And I think that's probably true, because when I was playing video games, which was way back in the days of Super Nintendo, we played a lot of terrible movie-based tie-in video games that were just awful. Except for Batman Returns. That Batman Returns game that we would always play on Sega, the aesthetic of that, they had to have a little bit more input to that, because that game looked like Batman Returns.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so to get to my point real quick, and we'll move on to the next one, I guess Vin Diesel started a video game company in order to be able to make Chronicle of Riddick tie-in video games, so he could have control over the story and how it looked, so he could, because they're all in the universe as a canon. So Vin Diesel seems like a guy with these Riddick movies, with Fast and Furious. He seems like a guy, he does really seem to care about the product that he's putting out there, which I respect. Mm-hmm. So Riddick in Pitch Black. So we got Pitch Black. Number 1, you're 1 for 1, my friend. Number 2, are you ready?
Yep.
Surf's Pup. 2002, Sony Pictures. Vin plays a former champion surfer who is now down and out. His fiancée has left him, and his endorsement deals have all dried up, and even his surf instruction school has failed before his eyes. Things start to look up one day when he sees a dog on the beach and realizes that it has a talent on the boards. Can he train this talented pooch to victory at the Beach Bum Classic? And can he win over the dog's owner a beautiful veterinarian who just moved in from Iowa. So that would have come out in 2002. Surf's Pup. Real or no real?
I want it to be real so bad, but I can't believe that it's real.
So your final answer, sir?
Not real.
You are correct. You are 2 for 2. That is a fake movie.
I want it to exist.
Well, I want it to exist too. That's why I thought of it. I've been dreaming about it since 2002. What I said with the fake ones, I thought what might be a little fun is if we talk a little bit about, so who would be in that movie? If that was a real movie, it comes out in 2002. It stars Vin Diesel. Who plays, do you think? And if you can't think of something, it's fine, because I didn't give this much thought other than writing the summary. But I'm thinking 2002. Who plays the female lead of the beautiful veterinarian who just moved in from Iowa, who owns this dog that has a talent for surfing? I'm thinking like a Jennifer Garner.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe a Reese Witherspoon or something along those lines. Maybe this movie is directed by Brett Ratner and stars Reese Witherspoon as the beautiful surfer. So, Surf's Pup, I would assume that there would be maybe a villain, a real like Karate Kid type villain who's another surfer, and he's not going to lose to a dog. Would the dog be competing against other dogs, or would the dog be competing against professional surfers? What do you think?
Oh, see, because it could go into two different directions with that.
Yeah.
It would have to be. It has to be.
I think it's got to be he's competing against professional surfers.
Oh yeah.
Because then you have a villain who this guy's pride. He can't be beaten by a dog.
Yeah, and the dog had to be entered in because of some ridiculous, like, either a snafu or a bet.
Yeah, a snafu or a bet or something like that. And I would guess at some point near the climax in the movie, Vin Diesel has to take back to the boards, possibly. So we got that. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, he gets the veterinarian girlfriend, and they have the dog, and maybe the last scene is them sitting on the beach. So we got that. That is beautiful.
Sitting on the beach, watching the dog surf.
Yes, and if I could just add one more thing about Surf's Pup was sitting on the beach, I think that the girl would have to be, but there's nobody for Sparky. And then you see Sparky, and he's dog paddling out on the surfboard, and then a female dog paddles up next to him on a surfboard. And that's
yeah.
All right, so you are 2 for 2, my friend. So far, you are killing it. Number 3, are you ready?
Yep.
A Man Apart. 2003, New Line Cinema. Vin plays a former criminal who is now a DEA agent working on the California-Mexico border. After arresting a drug baron, the mysterious Diablo steps in and organizes his assassination, but his wife is the one who is killed instead. Looking for revenge, he acts outside of the law to punish his wife's murderers. He hunts every member of the cartel from bottom to top of the organization's hierarchy on his quest to find Diablo and get his revenge. Is that real or no real?
No real.
That is a real movie. A Man Apart came out in 2003. It stars Vin Diesel, of course, and it's actually directed by the same guy who directed The Fate of the Heroes. We'll move right along on to the fourth one. This movie is called West of Midnight. West of Midnight. 2007, Sony. So far, you're 2-1, my friend. I hope you're keeping track of your score, because you know once it gets past a certain number, I can't keep track of numbers anymore. West of Midnight. Vin plays a chop shop mechanic in Queens who finds $100,000 hidden in the back seat of a stolen car. With no other prospects and a baby on the way, he decides to keep the money with the intention of immediately moving himself and his girlfriend out west to start a new life. He buys the next available plane tickets out of town, and the couple begin to pack up what little lives they have. Things get complicated, though, when he discovers that the money was a payoff from a notorious drug dealer to the owner of the chop shop. Now Vin must outrun both the drug dealer's crew and his former boss in order to not only survive the night himself, but save the life of those he loves. West of Midnight, my friend. Real, no real.
That's totes real.
You would be incorrect, my friend. I completely made that movie up. West of Midnight never came out in 2007. Even though it does sound like a perfect Vin Diesel movie that would have come out in 2007, if I don't say so myself. Yeah, 2007. I'm thinking that this is directed by maybe like a Tony Scott. Um, I don't know who plays the girlfriend or the wife or whatever, the drug dealer. Maybe Gary Oldman owns the chop shop or something like that. I could see, or maybe Gary Oldman is the drug dealer or something like that. I mean, you got to think like maybe was Vin Diesel? Not Vin Diesel. Oh God, dude from The Gray. Who's the dude who was a legitimate actor who just makes crappy action movies?
Yeah.
He's got a very unique set of skills. Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Maybe Liam Neeson is in there somewhere or something like that. All right, old man, that leaves you at a score of 2-2. Let's roll right into the fifth one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, The Last Witch Hunter, 2015, Summit Entertainment. Vin plays an immortal witch hunter working for the secret organization, the Axe and Cross. Their mission? To keep the truce between humans and witches and hunt and destroy those who break it. 800 years ago, he was able to defeat and kill the Queen Witch, but not before she had the chance to kill his family and curse him with eternal life. Now it seems that the evil of the Queen Witch has returned, and it's up to him to stop a plague from being let loose on New York City. His only aid on this quest is the 37th Dolan, 37 in a long line of priests who have stood by his side across the centuries, and Chloe, a witch and owner of a bar for witches. Leif, real or unreal?
After the West of Midnight steam, I cannot say that that's real.
My friend, I am so happy to say that that is a real movie that came out in 2015. No.
Is it on Netflix?
It's not. I've looked. It's definitely going to have to be a Prime somewhere down the line Fastback Podcast episode. The 37th Dolan is played by the kid who plays Frodo in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
And the 36th Dolan, which, come on, that's Doctor Who stuff right there. But the 36th Dolan is played by Michael Caine.
Okay.
So this is legitimate. He is a witch hunter. It's a big action movie where he fights witches and wears long leather jackets and goes to clubs and fights witches. It's total cheese fest. I don't think it did very well. He was very passionate about it. He thought this was going to be a new franchise. I don't think it will be, but he really went to bat and really put a lot of work into this one and really promoted it. This was kind of a passion project to him. Yeah, Vin Diesel fighting witches with the help of the 37th Dolan, which is just great in itself. The 37th Dolan.
The 37th Dolan.
So that, I think, is perfect somewhere way down the line for when we need an episode.
Oh, yeah.
That I think would be a great one. All right, so you are 2 for 5. All right, number 6. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The Swarm of Golden Skulls, 2011, Warner Brothers. Vin plays a 1920s explorer who leads an expedition into the heart of a mysterious part of the Brazilian Amazon, uncharted by man, but thought to be home to an ancient tribe referred to legend as the Swarm of Golden Skulls. With the help of Booker Shaw, his former college professor and mentor, Shaw's daughter Maddie, her former love interest and current professional rival, and Nathan Queen, the millionaire businessman who is funding the trip and a rival for Maddie's affection. He aims to convince this lost tribe to lead him to the Caves of Destiny, a collection of caverns believed to hold the origins of life on Earth. That's the Swarm of Golden Skulls. Leif, I ask you, real or no real?
I don't even know anymore. Real.
That is not real, my friend. So you are 2 for 6 at this point, correct?
Yep.
So the Swarm of Golden Skulls is definitely a movie that if it was real, you'd want to see. 2011, so it's an older Vin Diesel. I'm guessing maybe his the Maddie character is played by, I don't know, God only knows. I'm guessing that some old British guy for the Booker Shaw for the whatever, the professor or whatever.
Who was the one guy who played the assistant to Indiana Jones in that last movie?
Yeah, that's yeah. Oh yeah, Jonesy.
So that guy.
That guy? Yeah, as his professor and as his. Yeah, I could see that. And then, I don't know, the millionaire who would have to be somebody kind of uptight or something like that. Like a Hugh Grant type, but not quite Hugh Grant because he might be too old in 2011 to be playing that role. So yeah, that's the Swarm of Golden Skulls. So you are 2 for 6 on this, my friend. You do not know your Vin Diesel.
I don't.
The Pacifier 2, School's Out. 2007, Disney. All right, now you are aware, because we've talked about it before, that there is a movie called The Pacifier.
Mm-hmm.
Vin returns in this sequel to the hit 2005 comedy, The Pacifier. After protecting the children of the man he failed to save from Serbian rebels and teaching them some important life lessons along the way, that's what happens in The Pacifier. Vin has settled nicely into his new role as wrestling coach at their school. That also happens at the end of The Pacifier. When June comes, it's off to camp for the Plumber children. But even though school is out, danger never takes a vacation. With the camp now under control by the same rebels he fought before, looking to lure him out of hiding and discover his identity, Vin must once again go undercover, this time as a camp counselor, to save the day and the summer. The Pacifier 2, School's Up. Leif, real or unreal?
Unreal.
You got that one right, and I gave it away. You know how I gave it away?
I don't.
In the first sentence, when I said that he returns to the hit 2005 comedy. That should have been your first clue on that one. There's nothing more that needs to be said about that. Number 8. The Iron Giant. 1999 Warner Brothers animation. In this animated cult classic, Vin voices a gigantic robot who comes to Earth in the late 1950s and befriends a small-town boy. The two share a bond as the boy reads him comic books, and the gigantic robot especially loves the adventures of Superman, although he takes exception to the diabolical portrayal of robots in these fantastic tales. After accidentally derailing a train, a government agent is sent to town to investigate, but with the help of a junkyard beatnik, they are able to hide him in plain sight as one of the artist's sculptures. After giving himself up to save 2 young boys and winning the approval of the townspeople, the gigantic robotic beast must nevertheless face off against the military in a show of bravery that will change them all forever. The animated classic, The Iron Giant. Leif, is that real or unreal?
That's real.
That is real. Did you know about that one before?
Yeah, I remember seeing trailers for it.
It's supposed to be great. It's supposed to be absolutely great. And so I might have to pick that up. And the part in there that I put in about, because I didn't lift these word for word from any summary, but obviously I took summaries from Wikipedia and IMDb. But I do love the part in there about how he is offended by how robots are portrayed in the Superman comics, because that actually is in the movie.
I just like the part about Junkyard Beatnik.
There's a Junkyard Beatnik in there, and I can't remember who plays him. I'll have to tell you in a future episode who plays him. But when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll buy that for casting. So that was the 8th one, and I want to say you are... Are you 4 for 8 now? Yeah, because you pulled out the Pacifier 2 and Iron Giant, so you're 4 for 8. All right, man, let's see how you can end up on this. Okay. Number 9, Bloodwork. 2009, Fox. Vin plays a night shift ER nurse in the heart of LA. He doesn't always like what he sees, and one summer night, when a prostitute is brought in beaten half to death, he decides to do something about it. The only person who knows about his day job is Harper, a near-retired janitor and father figure. But when an up-and-coming detective, Natalie Perez, starts to get too close, he must decide between what his heart desires and what his fists require. 2009's Bloodwork. Is that real or no real?
Oh, I want it to be real. Real.
Are you saying that because you want it to be real, or you think that's a real movie?
Both?
That is not a real movie. I just like how I'm giving you a long list of movies that you're listening to, and you're like, man, I want to see that. And then I'm immediately pulling the rug out from under you when I tell you that's not a real movie.
Just crushing my dreams.
All right, man. So yeah, that was. I got to give myself props on that. When I came up with it, I was like, I want to see this movie. That sounds like a great movie.
Now you have your Hollywood pitch list.
I do have my Hollywood pitch list. Maybe one day somewhere someone will listen to this, and then we'll see these movies pop out. As we have spoken many things into the universe before in many a talk, and turned on the TV 3 months later to see these things coming out. Number 10, and really as good as you can do now. Okay. Is to tie. So you need to get this one for the tie. Mm-hmm. Number 10, Sunday's Finest. 2004, Universal Pictures. Vin plays a former high school standout linebacker who sacrifices a full ride in order to join the Army and serve his country. While stationed overseas, he notices that, like himself, many of his fellow soldiers miss the game and takes it upon himself to make a change. Against the wishes of his by-the-book commanding officer, he starts an interdivision league among the people he serves with in order to bring the game back to them and to bring all of them just a little closer to home. When word comes down that they are to be shipped out in a week's time, it gives them the opportunity to organize one last game, a championship to be remembered in a time when there's so much more to lose. 2004's Sunday's Finest. I ask you, for the tie, or for the loss, real or no real?
No real.
My friend, you are a proud tie. I don't even know what you call it when you tie. You can't say winner or loser, so you're proudly tied. You have gone right down the middle of mediocrity. You could have done better. You could have done worse.
I am average.
You are average. You got an equal about wrong and not wrong. I think that, and I'm going to pat myself a little bit on the back here and also take a slight dig, even though I love the man at Vin Diesel. Seems like the better movies were the ones that I made up. You should have, towards the end, you should have started thinking well, that actually sounds like a decent movie. I'm going to say that's not real.
That one has a plot.
That one has a plot. So you were 5 for 5. Now, if you would be interested in doing this and putting a couple on Twitter, and this is for anybody who may be listening, what I would love to see, and if you could mock up a couple of these yourself, and it doesn't have to be anytime soon, we could put these out. This episode is going to be up from now on until the end of time, so we could put a couple up on Twitter or our Facebook whenever. But if you could mock up, or anybody listening, mock up a couple fake posters for Surf's Pup, or The Swarm of Golden Skulls, or West of Midnight. Surf's Pup is the one that I really want to see. All the other ones are just going to kind of be just grim posters. But if there's anybody listening who wants to be creative, tweet us out these. Yeah. Tweet us these, put them on our tweet, email them to us at our fastbackpodcast@gmail.com. We'll share them on our Twitter. What should the hashtag they use? Just hashtag, I guess right now, just hashtag fastbackpodcast, and we'll search it, see if anybody puts any up. We would love to see some creativity and see if anybody wants to share those. The Pacifier 2, School's Out. Bloodwork would be a great, gritty poster in kind of Gran Torino fashion. If you want to make a poster for Sunday's Finest. Like I said, Leif, I would love at least to see what you come up with for Surf's Pup or any one of these that you want to pick. You have, I would love to see it if you want to make some of those. So that was the game. 5 for 5, not bad. That leads us into a actual real Vin Diesel movie, as you mentioned earlier, which I have the tagline for Triple X, which came out in 2002, Columbia Pictures, And I'm very curious if you didn't know about Triple X, and I hadn't asked you to watch the trailer for this episode, and I said, Triple X, 2002, Columbia Pictures, an extreme sports athlete, Xander Craig, is recruited by the government on a special mission. I mean, would you think that was real or no real? I mean,
I think that was not real.
You would think that.
I remember when this movie was coming out, I thought it wasn't real.
No, because it seems like one of those parodies. Like for a while there, with like the Grindhouse, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez movies, and I think that movie that they did, Tropic Thunder. Mm-hmm. There was a thing with movies where they would do like fake, absurd trailers in front of them, or sometime in them to like be part of the experience.
Yeah.
And this, like, if Fast and the Furious wanted a fake, absurd trailer in front of it, and they're like, "Is this a gag?" But it is not a gag. And that's all you need to know about it, really. I didn't do much of a summary for this one because we're going to talk about the trailer. But an extreme sports athlete is recruited by the government to go on a special mission. I have a note here that says, "Yeah, that's all you need to know, really."
Oh.
What did you think about this trailer?
I thought it was pretty much Fast and the Furious.
Well, it's the same director.
Yeah.
And it came out.
It was ridiculous.
2 years after. So this is another collaboration between Vin Diesel and that director, which I wish I would have wrote the man's name, but we'll mention him next week because next week episode we're going to be doing a review of this movie here that we're watching the trailer about. This is, I guess, maybe their Scorsese, De Niro, Spielberg, Richard Dreyfuss, somewhere in the 2000s. These two guys were getting together and making the Fast and the Furious and Triple X. And then with the second Triple X movie, just like he did with the Fast and Furious movie, Vin Diesel leaves. Okay, there's a second Triple X movie called State of the Union. Do you want to know who plays Triple X in that one?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's Ice Cube.
Nice.
And then he comes back for the third one, for the Return of Xander Cage, which is the trailer that you accidentally watched before you watched the trailer for the original Triple X. So, yeah, this just seemed like, oh, man, there was not a lot of thought in this trailer. I just have action, babes, guns.
Yeah,
cars. Yeah, there's car stunts in here, which I forgot there was car stunts in this movie. I think I saw this movie a long time ago. Yeah, there's car stunts in it. There's a James Bond gag in there where he's like shaking and stirred. And there's I love the little scene in there where the guy is walking like with Triple X, explaining to Triple X basically who Triple X is. So he as he explains it to the audience.
Yeah.
Extreme stunts. I think he's driving the same car that he drives in the Fast and the Furious.
It looked like it.
Have you picked up on that?
Yeah.
Rock music blaring. Snowboards. I think at the very end there was a little tag of a motorcycle jumping over an explosion. A terrible CGI explosion, but so I couldn't tell if the explosion was in the background or if the motorcycle was supposed to be jumping over the explosion. That's something to look forward to. What is your interest level? I mean, we're going to watch it for next week's podcast, so I guess it's a moot point, but what is your interest level on seeing this thing?
I wouldn't have gone out of my way to see it, but now I'm curious to see how it jives with the rest of the Fast and Furious, because this is, in my head, this is all just the one big series.
Yeah, like we said, if you're in there and you're watching 70s Scorsese, you have to watch it all. So if you're watching 2000s Vin Diesel, which one day people will have college courses about 2000s Vin Diesel cinema, this is a huge part of it. It's the other pillar. These Triple X movies, right with the Fast and Furious movies. What is your expectation on this? Are you thinking that this is going to be anything other than just wild, crazy stupidity? Do you think
it's going to be a crazy action scene to crazy action scene.
And Vin Diesel looking real cool.
Oh, yeah.
This is still a relatively young Vin Diesel. I think he's already probably in his mid-30s at this point, which is relatively young.
Well, but, didn't the trailer end with Samuel L. Jackson saying and try to look dope doing it?
Yeah, that's the line. Save the world and try to look dope doing it. I think that's the same line that they use as on Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, which I can't wait to see. I have not seen that one yet, but that will of course, these 3 XXX movies are going to be part of the Fastback podcast. We'll watch each one at some point down the line. So I'm kind of pumped to see this again, just to see how absurd it is, and just to see, I think I'm very interested to see if the absurdity holds up on its own without certain character moments. What we've noticed from the first 2 Fast and Furious movies we've watched, and for anybody joining us, this is maybe your first episode, by the first 2 we are talking about the 8th and the 7th, is there is a nice balance of those character moments with the absurdity. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if you're just getting straight absurdity, if it's just going to get to be a drag. I'm also wondering if you're getting straight action sequence after action sequence, if it's going to be, kind of just like overwhelming, like sometimes it was when we were watching these movies, or if because it was 20-something years ago, there's enough practical stunts to make it interesting. I don't mind action if it's practical. I don't get that kind of fatigue if it's practical. It's that CGI, everything's blowing up and blaring all over the place, that start a little bit of fatigue. So I'm going to be interested how much of this is CGI, because there ain't nothing worse than early 2000s, late 90s CGI.
Oh, yeah.
Almost 100 years getting practical effects to looking amazing to, like, just terrible, like Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1 level CGI. So, this is much later, but I'm kind of curious to see what the effects are like on this. So, yeah, we're going to watch that one this week, and we will have a full review, summary, reaction to XXX, the original 2002. So if anybody's listening and you want to watch that movie sometime in the course of the next week so you can kind of listen along and understand what we're talking about, that would be great. We would, of course, love to see those posters that we were talking about. Do you have anything else, Leif, that you'd like to add about this trailer? Not much meat on this trailer.
No,
we don't have much of the plot.
It's basically just Vin Diesel, action, women.
Yeah, you don't need much of an attention span to see this.
Yeah.
So much different even than we were talking about the trailers that are coming out today. A lot has changed with trailers in 17 years, as we talked about earlier in tonight's episode, so it's kind of all coming full circle. So nothing else to add to that, everybody. Next week, again, XXX review. Leif, why don't you tell everyone where they can find us, as you always do?
Okay, it's the huge Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all at Fastback Podcast. Comment, reach out, whatever it is you want to do. You do you.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get some feedback.
Subscribe or do whatever, man. It's your game. Anyway, so yeah. And email us, fastbackpodcast@gmail.com. And that's all I got.
That's all you got. And again, I really would love to see some mock-up posters for some of these fake Vin Diesel movies.
Would that make your week?
It would make my... If I went on Twitter to this week and some random soul posted a poster for Surf's Pup, I can't imagine that there would be any greater feeling. I'm not a father like you, so I would imagine that would be that summary would be what I've contributed to the universe, and I'd be pretty proud of that. Thank you, everybody who's listening. We are starting to pick up a little bit that we are having listeners out there somewhere, maybe not on the old YouTube, but we're seeming to gain some traction somewhere out there in the world of the internet. So we do appreciate anybody who's listening, and we will talk to you next week. Leif, go ahead and say goodbye to the good folks.
Have a good week, and we'll see you later, man.
Have a good week, everybody. Stay furious.